Hi everyone. I hope for those of you who've actually tuned in, welcome again. Welcome to the third episode from the Chicago booth Alumni Club here in Malaysia. We're just waiting for more people to join in. Give us about 2 more minutes or 3 more minutes. As soon as I get clear off from Lenora, I will start the discussion. Hi, everybody. I think for those of you who tuned in again, we're just giving it about 2 more minutes to sort of tune in for people to tune in, and then we can start this session. Hi, Jax.
Hi, Jax.
Okay, 1 more minute, and then. Hey, everybody. I think let's kick this off. So today we are actually discussing about online games, digital payments, and recruitment during a pandemic. I'm sort of emphasizing the part about recruitment is because I was talking to Sid and he's talking about some really interesting things, how people are looking for jobs, how they're changing jobs. Even though we hear that there's a lot of layoffs, on the other side, there are companies, particularly in the digital payments, online game section, where there's a lot of hiring that is still going on. So just to give you a quick introduction of the session today, we will have, we are basically, we have Sidharth, who's the COO at Coda Payments from Singapore. He's currently based in Malaysia because he got caught during the MCO, and he's staying here. I've known Sid through some of the alumni events here in Malaysia. He's been here for about 8 years. Seen him through various stints where he was a CEO of an education company. So he's migrated from education directly into a gaming company and payments company. So I always see him doing interesting things. He's also a graduate from Chicago booth from the full-time program between 2007 to 2009. So without further ado, basically the event today is Sidharth has prepared a whole bunch of slides for us. He will discuss that in a little bit more detail. Around 6:40, we will stop for some Q&A and then end that session as well. So without further ado, let me hand the session over to Sidharth to take over, and I'll switch the slides over.
Well, thank you, Anand. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, great.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Anand, for giving that introduction. I think you gave a good chronology of my career path. But I think before jumping straight into gaming and monetization of gaming, I did do a short stint after my education gig into a payment aggregation platform with a Axiata umbrella. Now, Axiata is a large telco, and that was an interesting way of getting into the whole digital space. And this is where the excitement starts. So I know there are quite a number in the forum as well who are pretty deep skilled in digital and digital payment. My journey of digital has been in the last, say, close to around 3+ years. And prior to that, whatever I have done in multiple organizations, I have always kept one leg in the technology arena. So with that, good evening, everyone. As Anand said, I'm the CEO for Coda Payments. This is a payment aggregation platform, but our niche is around focusing on mobile gaming monetization. So what I want to do today evening is I want to cover three topics. First, I'll walk through a bunch of slides, but that basically introduces what we do as Coda Payments, just to get you excited about the whole space around payments, as well as the whole gaming industry, which we are not publishers, but we are helping the gaming industry to monetize and reach multiple geographies, which they otherwise will not be able to reach directly. Then what I will do is change gears a little bit, and then we'll focus on the gaming industry as a whole. Now, I'm no expert in the whole industry, but whatever I have seen so far in my 9 to 10 months in Coda Payments, and within the whole gaming industry, how COVID actually played an impact on the scales which we are seeing. And that's a good segue to the third topic which I want to cover, is how did we as an organization geared up for dealing with COVID, and what it means on our revenue side, but also what it means in opportunities which it presents to us in terms of expanding our footprint and expanding in the key recruitment arena, in which we were probably as a startup would not have gotten the right talent in the past, or would have struggled to get the right talent. But in today's world, how we are approaching that. So those are the three focus areas which I want to cover as of today. And I know there's a Q&A session. Feel free to ask anything which pertains, which takes your interest. So with that, Anand, can you go to the next slide, please? So like I said, what I want to cover first is who we are. So from a Coda perspective, we are one of the fastest growing specialists in collecting payments. And this payment is all the way in digital world. We don't do anything in the physical world. So in the digital world, our focus definitely is mobile and online gaming, but we are also helping digital players like Netflix, some of the digital players like Tinder, to then monetize their digital product. So there's a whole plethora of different product offerings which we bring to the market. I'll go into that later. But this is what we are doing as a primary business. Now, as a team, we have grown pretty fast. As of today, we are roughly around 180 employees spread across a geography. Last I checked, we were in 16 geographies. Our key focus markets are pretty diverse. We focus on emerging markets, and hence Southeast Asia was our playground, but we have expanded quite a bit in areas like LATAM, Middle East, Russia, and so on and so forth. What we do in these geographies is we are the aggregators, and we work very closely with mobile operators, if you are familiar with this whole space, we have direct carrier billing. We also aggregate mobile wallets, and we provide other alternative payment channels like over-the-counter collections. Now, as you see, where we are going is as an alternative payment solution to the likes of Google and Apple. So this is what we are doing. So with that, our network has extends to around 31 countries, where we are able to successfully monetize, reach the customers, and collect payments. So as of today, we roughly gauge that we have roughly around 11 million monthly gamers. Now, one thing to point out is these are paying users, because we are focused on monetization. All the guys who come to our platform transact. So this is a huge set of users who actively pay on our platform. Now, as a bit of what it means on a daily basis is we have seen spikes where we handle close to 5.1 to even we have seen spikes of around 7 million transactions a day. When our partners like Montoon, Tencent, I'll go a little bit deeper, they release a major game version. And just to translate that into a per second perspective, it almost is around 330 to 350 transactions per second. And that is massive scale, which we have gotten in our platform in a total cloud native platform. Where this whole journey started is all the way from 2011. And as of today, we are headquartered in Singapore, and we are working across the whole region. So with that, Anand, could you go to the next slide, please? So with this validation of our story, we are getting a great market validation as well in terms of what we have been seeing in the news and the market. So very recently, as of 2 weeks back, we were named as the top 100 technology pioneers in the World Economic Forum. We also have been credited with in Straits Time as the fourth fastest growing startups in the Singapore economy, and Financial Times rates us at around the 20 plus from a growth perspective. So this has been a great validation of the story, which has started all the way in 2011. Anand, could you transition to the next slide? So when we look at our journey, this is started by two founders by the name of Neil and Paul. They were working with GSMA back in London, and 2011, when they were working in this whole, if you are a tech person or a telecom person, you would hear open APIs. This was a whole standardization of open APIs which were coming into the market, and GSMA was driving it for collecting digital payments in the mobile world. So what basically it means is you're consuming something digitally and you can charge it to your phone consumption, phone bill directly. So with that, Neil and Paul decided to move their bag and baggage. They just landed in Indonesia back in 2011 and started this business in 2011 in Jakarta. And if you look at this kind of like a hockey stick, we like to see it going up, but this is generally our transaction volumes. I'm not giving you numbers. We are still privately held, but it has been a great story for the first 3 to 4 years with zero revenue, bootstrapping, and first revenue really kicked in 2014. And from that time, the organization hasn't looked back. So as of 2014, when the first non-DCB channel kicked in, when I say non-DCB is people like wallets, we actually started collecting payments on wallets and passing that to our merchant set who is connected to our platform. And from there, we have already reached EBITDA and net income profitability from 2017 onwards. And we are growing from our self-generated cash. We do have pretty large investors in terms of bigger names, GMO Venture, some venture-backed cap, and then we have a significant private equity who has put in some injection. But naturally, we are driving our growth from internally generated cash to where we are as of today. Anand, could you go to the next slide, please? So I just want to give a perspective of what we do, just to make it real, and you can see where the whole monetization of mobile gaming is heading. As a platform, we focus on digital content. We partner with digital content providers, and we take them to multiple geographies which they otherwise would not have reached on their own, because their focus is to publish digital content, be it a Netflix or a Tencent or a Garena who is publishing games. Their focus is not around the nuts and bolts of how we collect payment. And that is where we come in, as we do all the heavy lifting around connecting all these payment channels, the alternative payment channels. And as of today, if you think of the biggest names in the Chinese gaming industry, the top 10, 8 will be on our platform, and they are the ones who are collecting money. We are the ones who are collecting money on their behalf and helping them monetize it. So the titles you will probably commonly hear of, they're close to 300 plus merchants on our platform. But the common ones you will hear is maybe PUBG is something which I know someone from Tencent is on the call. We are monetizing for PUBG, Call of Duty, also from a non-gaming perspective, people like Tinder and Netflix. So there are 3 different models on which we work as a platform, what we call as a Coda Pay platform, Coda Shop platform, and an X Shop platform. So these are our 3, call it our product propositions. From a Coda Pay platform, since if you don't know of Coda, I will just call ourselves as the Stripe of non-credit card channels. So if you have a website on which you want to collect money, there's one integration to Coda Pay platform, and then the 30 plus countries in which we are present in, we can help you to take, we help content providers to monetize in these countries. The Coda Shop is which is our core brand in which we own the customer relation. And this is where, if you look at the image out there, on a Coda Shop platform, we are a typical e-commerce, but focused on mobile gaming as our key clientele. So this is where PUBG, Tencent, Montoon, Garenas of the world will publish their titles. And these titles, people click on it. We consider ourselves sometimes like a vending machine. People know what they want. They will come, put the money in, and we deliver the goods. And this is where I said most of the guys who transact on our platform are paying users. We also take this whole platform and white labeled it to then take it to our big super apps, Gojeks, Bukalapex of the world. And these, if you go on their apps and you collect, you want to buy a gaming credit, the diamonds and gems of the world, we actually do all the fulfillment from our backend. So that's roughly the way we are conducting our business. Anand, if you can move to the next one. Now, this is a little bit of a salesy type of deck, so I will not go into the details, but there are some big names out there. Big names like Tencent, NetEase, Netflix, Bigo Live, IGG. Now, these are our predominant merchant set is still mobile games, but we are also diversified in video on demand, entertainment, and that's where you will see people like Bigo Live who are connected to our platform. Next slide, please. Just to make it a little real, this is the three brand which I briefly mentioned, Coda Pay, Coda Shop, and X Shop. If you go to the next slide. So what we do on Coda Pay platform is, if any merchant has and if you're not from the mobile world, you have to remember that in the mobile world, you have an Apple, which is a totally closed ecosystem. Then you have Google, which is semi-closed. What I mean by that is Apple will not allow third-party payment aggregators like us to work directly with them, but Google does allow. But there is a limit. If you are looking at monetizing in-app, so what in-app really means is you're playing a game and you want to click on the diamond you want to purchase, and that diamond should open up. Once you click on it, it opens up a whole payment option to you. That is an in-app experience. That doesn't happen in Google. So most of the gaming platforms like Tencent will have a Midas Buy portal, which is their own portal on which they will monetize and they will collect payment. That is where our platform connects to them. So on their platform, they will actually go and monetize their gaming credits. Once the user clicks on a particular credit or a SKU, then they connect to our Coda Pay platform, where then we take them to a global coverage. And that is pretty much to around 250 plus payment channels in the 30 plus geographies which we operate in. Anand, to the next slide, please. So what we are connected to is roughly around 37 telcos where we are providing direct carrier billing. We are also connected to 183 bank transfer platforms which we support. We are also connecting the merchants to cash at retail. Now, these are places like 7-Eleven or in Indonesia, Alfamart, where people actually buy something, but they actually go to the counter to pay cash, and that cash comes into the whole digital ecosystem. So these are different networks on which we are connected to. If you go to the next slide. One of our largest growing markets or segments of payment channels, we call it all payment channels, is the e-wallets. Paytm is an example. In Malaysia, you have Boost, Touch and Go. This is a segment which is growing tremendously. Back in 2017, probably if we looked at our revenues from e-wallets, it was negligible, almost zero. But as of today, it could be anywhere between 35% plus of our revenues are generated by e-wallets. So this is a segment which is growing very strongly, and in the whole digital world, this is fragmented as well, and that is where somewhere we play in to come in and aggregate all these platforms together. We do offer credit card channels, but mostly not direct integration, but we will work with partners like Stripe and others to provide credit card channels to our consumer set. Anand, if you can go to the next slide, please. Now, Coda Shop is something which I'm really excited about because this is a typical e-commerce platform where we are helping the game developers to monetize. So typically what happens is you go to Coda Shop, on which you will see a whole bunch of different options, different game titles which are mentioned up there. And this is where our merchant business development team works with these digital game titles to have two forms, a direct API top-up where someone buys a particular set of diamonds, and after paying through a particular payment channel, we deliver directly to their game accounts. And this is where this is a whole ecosystem of digital play, where the end-to-end, all the way from order to fulfillment happens digitally on our platform. This is our biggest growth story. We have expanded our Coda Shop platform in 30 plus countries where you can actually buy Coda Shop Malaysia, you can buy credits from Coda Shop India, and wherever you are geographically located, we help monetize that. This is where we are seeing a lot of traction from users. We have a whole engine of marketing support which goes into by in the whole selling proposition. So we have YouTubers, Instagram account holders who are on our marketing channel, which promotes a particular game. And this is where the marketing partnership works very well. This is a typical e-commerce. So we have the whole set of customer support which goes to it. And this is a typical B2C business versus Coda Pay was a B2B proposition for us. We have seen great growth coming from emerging markets. And I think this is driven by, in emerging markets, you have very little credit card penetration, and people are actually purchasing quite a bit. These are small ticket items. They are not big ticket items, but the volume is humongous in places like Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, you name it. And we have seen tremendous growth in these emerging markets where people have smartphones, but they don't really have a credit card or a debit card to be able to purchase. And bringing a whole platform for them to make the digital purchases is a massive growth area. Going to the next slide, Anand, please. This is a typical partnership basis. We do have something called X Shop. Just by the name of it, it is X Shop, which is a white label platform. What we do is whatever is available in our kitty of merchants, the SKUs which we have transacted with, as well as the vouchers which we are selling, we can actually put all of this in the super apps. So just for example, if you are Go Games, if you're buying a PUBG mobile credit, that comes from, the fulfillment happens from our platform. And in the whole user experience, the super apps will control the full user experience. They will not know that this is fulfilled by Coda in the background, but we will drive the whole backend around it. But we also drive the account acquisition, which is where partnerships kick in. We have multiple partnerships which will strike with, you buy X number of diamonds, you get a cashback. So this is where we play in the whole digital ecosystem, where we are working with our merchant set, but we are very closely working with our payment channels as well to bring the best experience for the users. Going to the next slide, Anand. So I just want to, again, this is a bit of a sales pitch type of deck, but these are the names you will really relate to. There are some big ex-shop partners on which people like Tokopedia, Shopee, Paytm, in their app, if you're buying a gaming top-up, we are the ones who are fulfilling in the back end. And for us, it is a huge customer acquisition story. But at the same time, this is really, gaming is a key focus areas for all of these bigger apps to monetize. So if you think about what is happening in the whole wallet area, most of them are, their biggest merchandising is still physical merchandising, and those margins are really tiny. Digital is where they are really focusing on because they see massive growth area. This scales up very quickly. You don't need to go and spend tons of money in merchant acquisition. And those are the value add which we bring as an aggregator, all the way from payment channel, but bringing a whole set of really good digital content, which otherwise will not exist in these markets. Going to the next slide, Anand. And this is a bit of a segue to what I wanted to cover as my second topic, a bit of a look into how we are seeing the mobile gaming industry evolve. Now, if you think back, the gaming industry was very much dominated by PC gaming, your MacBook gaming, but they were also dominated by the likes of your console, your Nintendo console, Xbox consoles. And back in 2014 was the first time mobile gaming as such overtook the whole market of PC and Mac gaming. And from there, the industry has not looked back. And naturally it comes, I mean, it's intuitive because the number of mobile phones which are in the market has really surpassed whatever consoles which exist or the PC gaming which exist. This is really, so one of the interesting dynamics, this is a study from App Annie, but one of the interesting dynamics, if you think about it, is mobile gaming as a rev share. So Anand, I wanted to just, never mind, yeah, go back a little. You're going forward. If you can go back, one slide back. Yeah. So what I wanted to focus is, as a market, this has really surpassed your PC and Mac gaming by almost 2.8 times if you look at as of 2020. It's also interesting to see, if you think of console gaming, this has become almost a 3 times market compared to a console gaming. And the trends which we are now seeing is the games as per se are now, the publishers are now changing from developing a console only or a mobile only type of game to be more hybrid. They are trying to make their games more platform agnostic. And this is where the transition from the typical console or the PC games is happening, and people are getting that experience, that social network on mobile side as well. I will not touch on the COVID topic yet because I do want to cover that on the next couple of slides. Anand, okay, thank you. When you look at the spend patterns, it's really interesting to look at, if you look at iOS and Google combined together, the mobile gaming sector contributes to only around 40% of the downloads. But from a revenue perspective, it contributes to around 70% of the consumer spend. So this is where you can think about why the big players are really focused on gaming, because people are spending on games. And in iOS and Google's case, this is a significant portion of their revenues coming in, despite the number of, from a pie share perspective, games are lower in terms of a download, but they contribute a lot more from a revenue perspective. What also has helped the gaming industry is it's moving towards a subscription model. So which was the concept of the Netflix of the world, the entertainment side of it, digital entertainment, but that is going into a subscription model, and that has driven not just the non-gaming sector, but some of the places where gaming sector is going towards subscription models as well. So with that, Anand, if you can go to the next slide. Today, we wanted to talk about a bit of a COVID impact what's the impact on gaming industry? And I think I will definitely say that I'm a bit lucky to be in a bit of a counter-cyclical market, because we personally have seen massive growth in our total payment processing in the last couple of months since people have been on lockdowns. But as a industry, what this chart shows is it has given the weekly downloads by countries all the way starting from January till around May. This is the period in which countries were going into lockdowns to counteract the impact which COVID was bringing to the whole economy and the health sector. If you just think about and pause a minute, what it meant to the gaming industry is during the lockdowns, the weekly gaming industry game downloads saw a record high of around 1.2 billion. And this is pretty significant. And this has happened across in multiple markets. If you think of it, it started in China, but as coronavirus was progressing, most of the countries started going into lockdowns. And as a systematically, if you compare the numbers of weekly downloads from January to the weekly downloads in later part, every market has seen a significant jump in terms of gaming industry downloads. So that is something which is quite significant, and that has translated into the revenues which the gaming industry has driven as well. Going to the next slide. So in gaming industry, people who are from the industry, we use a lot of terms to define the genre on which a game falls. Could be casual, simulation game, adventure game, and a whole different range of other terms, which I'm not going to go into. But what we saw was a very significant increase in simulation games and a board game perspective. Now, what I mean by board game is, I grew up in India, and Ludo was a very typical game where we'll sit with friends, family, and play it on a board. All of this social interaction has gone digital. People are still spending quite a bit of time interacting socially on games, and that has just gone digital. So that segment or a subgenre has seen a significant increase. When you also look at the time spent on game, that has across the board has increased, and in some cases, time spent we have seen a factor of around 8 from a quarter to quarter perspective. So that just shows that, and it's counterintuitive, it's intuitive as well. People are stuck at home, they're wanting that social interaction, and that social interaction is coming from games, which has become really multiplayer, really a social environment in which you meet friends, you interact, and you play a game. Going to the next slide, please, Anand. And you can see this in typical, not just game, but platforms which are very closely interacting with the gaming industry. And Discord and Twitch being two of the platforms. If you don't know these platforms, Discord is a platform, think of it as more of a social interaction through chats, messages, voice, but they focus on the gaming industry. Twitch is something similar. Twitch, it really helps real-time streaming of a lot of games. There's platforms which are tied to Twitch, where you can actually watch games real time. At the same time, you can contribute to the ad revenues or contribute to the players who are playing. Consistently, if you look at the graph on the right, as countries started going into lockdowns, there were really a significant increase in terms of the downloads of these platforms, really driven by people's strong urge in terms of interacting. They still want that social interaction. And that social interaction, starting from the gaming platform all the way flowing into platforms which work across the whole gaming industry. So this is a significant increase which we have seen. How it continues, I'm not sure yet. We still have to look at how the data comes in. But what we are betting on is this is the new normal in which people are operating in. They are spending a lot of time staying indoors, and the interaction which they are getting is social media, digital, and gaming industry is right in there to ride that wave going forward. One of the things which is not in the slide, but what we also observed in our last couple of months, from our revenue perspective, we did see a pretty significant increase. But that revenue, one aspect was the COVID impact, where it drove the volumes up. But there was another aspect in which the gaming industry, it's such, the bigger titles were launching new products, or rather new releases. With a new release, we saw a significant jump in our transaction processing. And it was, in a good way, all of it culminating together, because I think as an industry, the gaming industry is trying to figure out how to actually capitalize on this opportunity, it might sound wrong, but we have to think about how do we actually help in this whole recession which is coming in for an industry which seems a bit more counter-cyclical. Whether these trends will continue, not sure, and this is where we are all grappling with the idea of what is the new normal going to be. Anand, if you can go to the next slide. And that is a segue to what I wanted to talk about as my third key focus area. What does it mean to us as an organization? I'm not here to talk about revenue, but as an organization, we are a team of around 180, still a startup mode, but we are quite spread. Our key offices are in Singapore, Jakarta, and Bangkok. But then we have outposts in places like Hong Kong, Taipei, all the way to LA, Dubai, Brazil, and Argentina. So when I personally, and Anand and I, we were talking about it a little earlier, I personally did not understand the gravity of this. And with that, I got stuck in Malaysia. I was traveling for some personal work in Singapore, from Singapore to Malaysia, and with the whole lockdowns, I'm still in Malaysia. But as a business, what we had to do is very quickly, within a span of few days, in fact, we had to actually develop a business continuity plan. Now, we are not a large organization. In a larger organization, you have these plans ahead of time and sitting in someone's desktop as a business continuity trigger. We had to do it from scratch. Putting our heads together, how do we actually divide our teams from team A, team B? What does the new normal going to be? How do we give guidance to our team members to come to work? But eventually, I think what we decided was everyone just worked from home, and we are continuing to do that. And we were pretty successful in making that transition all the way because our digital platform was pretty much geared up for effective collaboration and communication across the board. We also put in measures using tools and processes to measure performance. And we were constantly engaging with our employees to understand the morale, how to keep the morale up. And this whole effort was pretty instrumental in the way we rode this wave. And we just finished a poll last week with our organization. And it seems like the organization morale is quite high. People are still very productive, and we haven't seen the productivity dip at this stage. And that also gave us a trigger point around this was the perfect opportunity as well to not slow down our expansion plan, but actually strategically, we are not blatantly hiring, but we are strategically going after areas which we would not have otherwise thought of, and hiring the right candidates for that particular area. So with that, Anand, if you can go to the next slide. Digital platform for us played a very effective role. Again, being a startup, we have no infrastructure, everything is on the cloud, but we strategically went after a few of the tools which is quite critical, and I'm calling out few of them. We implemented Bamboo HR as our HRIS system. so that we can have a very real-time tracking of our people, all the way from leave management to one of the things which I personally use is understanding the organization. The whole org structure is there. Naturally, we are leveraging LinkedIn to reach the right talent, but we have also implemented and invested in performance management tools. So we are driven by OKRs, and we track OKRs very diligently in a tool called Cohen. We implemented Lattice as a cloud-based proposition to what we do with Lattice is it's a performance management system, but we also use it to give feedback and praise people publicly, in fact, on our Slack channels to motivate them. Slack is going crazy at this stage for us. Last I counted, we had 200 different channels. As of today, probably 20 more got added because of different interest groups. But all of this actually helps to bring all of this together. And naturally, we are focusing on very robust way of managing our employees. Anand, if you can go to the next slide.
I also wanted to sort of highlight to you, I know we are close to your Q&A session.
I acknowledge that. I'm keeping that in mind, and that's why I will run through a little bit faster. Don't have that many slides, but we saw COVID as an opportunity to get talent. There's a lot of talent available right there, be it the impact which they have seen because of COVID in their natural environments of travel, fintech, to a certain extent. These talent, and we'll probably go into Q&A as well on this. In normal times, we would not have been able to go after this talent. But in today's world, we think this is a great opportunity for us. We are a stable organization. Financially, we are stable, and hence we are going after some skunk works, which we would not have prioritized earlier. But what is key for us is really hiring the right person for the right job. We are spending a lot more effort in trying to find this. Culture fit is critical. Culture fit is something which can break or make a particular discussion, even if we think the technical skills are there, because in virtual world, this is becoming even more and more critical. It's also important I'll skip this, Anand. Let's just go to the next slide. So what we realize, we are a young organization. Our managers are not, our typical age, average age will be around mid-30s or 33 to 35. And with that, we had to really provide substantial training to our employees. How do we interview in today's virtual world? So we have given a lot of emphasis around how do you minimize bias, culture fit, what are the things which we need to look at to evaluate culture fit, and really going after, don't make any desperate hires. And over time, Anand, if you can go to the next slide. We grew very fast, but so in the past, we did not put a lot of emphasis on onboarding our employees. In the last couple of months, we added close to around 40 employees whom we have not met personally. We have only interacted in a virtual setting. And that is something significant for an organization like ours, because the onboarding experience has to be really seamless. So with my HR team, really, we sat down and had a very clear plan for a month, all the way from the time an employee is coming in to how do we engage with their functional leads, give them the guidance around what are the things you need to do for onboarding. And by the time a person comes in, having proper check-ins with a particular, how they are doing, not just at work, but as a culture assimilation part, and mentally how they are doing. And acknowledging the time, Anand, I'm just going to run through the last slide. One thing which I want to leave this group is, in today's world, it is really becoming more and more important to constantly engage. Our Slack channels are always lit up. I don't know if it is a good thing or a bad thing that I keep losing track of Slack channels, but what we are doing is we are constantly engaging in, we started with the typical, let's do all hands virtually. And that fell flat on our face because close to 100 and at that stage, close to 160 people looking at you on a virtual setup. That didn't work. We still had to do the all hands, but we changed the format. We made it more inclusive. How do we bring topics which everyone is interested in? But then we created interest groups. We started having fun in smaller groups. In an optimal setup, with what we found, maximum we could have is a group of 20 people who can engage in trivia, who can engage in fun groups. Interest groups played a huge role in bringing everyone together. And I think don't underestimate the value of these social interactions, which people still seek. I miss the water cooler talk, but at this stage, these groups are becoming those interest groups, cooking, reading, and these trivias, Netflix night, trivia nights, reading nights, all of this is becoming that social interaction. So with that, I think, Anand, that's what I wanted to cover in the presentation piece. Happy to take any questions at this stage.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because you are busy, so which is a good thing, right? While a lot of them are trying to figure out where their next business is going to come from, will they still have jobs? Do they have to do any kind of pay cuts? Whether I'm going to be retrenched, what's going to happen to my organization, whether you're an entrepreneur or fully employed. Most people are trying to figure out how to preserve cash and what do the large organizations do. So in that sense, I think it's exciting to say that you're doing well. One question that I want to ask you on the recruitment side is, do you actually see talent? You're getting very high quality talent at a rate that you would have never seen before? Like, well, you know what I mean is, are they willing to, like, if somebody was like, very expensive to hire, are you finding those people now able to hire them at rates that makes sense? Market has adjusted that, and you're able to recruit the right kind of people.
So naturally, a couple of months back, when we discussed internally, we did think that the new norm is going to be, if they were making 10, into the new norm, they will be making 7 or 8. That's how we expected it. And we have seen that in certain talent pool which went out of job, their specialized talent pool, say for example, IT compliance, IT security, these talent pool, they got pretty substantial salary packages in the past, and they have adjusted a little bit. But there's another talent pool, the Airbnbs of the world, the couple of other big names of the world. And that talent pool would not have considered us in the past, but in today's world, they are considering us, and that discussion is exciting them because the runway is much longer. But we have to be a bit creative in getting that talent pool, because we don't want to undercut the market. I think that's not the right way we think about it. Ethically, we have to do the right thing. But this is where the talent pool is willing to take a slightly lower fixed component, but they are willing to adjust it with the variable component which kicks in, or the long-term lock-ins with ESOPs which kicks in. So for the key talent, we have been a little creative how to go after them. But you're right, that talent pool which we would not have thought of in the past is talking to us, and we do see that value of bringing that seniority and the experience which they bring from outside.
I mean, because 40 number is not a small number to hire in the last few months. I mean, Google in some senses also does that kind of hiring with their own people, if you ask me. So I don't think it's a small number in any sense. So there is definitely a huge advantage. So anyway, let me go to some of the questions. Jian May, hopefully I've spelled it right, is asking, what is Coda's superpower to take competitive advantage against the incumbent players? Apple, Google, they are dominant in a position in the whole value chain for years already. So how is Coda preparing itself to sort of take on these powers? Or will you say that since Asia has moved into much more digital payments, it's a lot more easier for you here?
So Apple and Google have been in our discussion throughout, and we constantly think about how do we work our chess pieces if something changes in the ecosystem. Now, I alluded to this fact a little earlier. Apple is a totally closed ecosystem for us. So what it means is if there's any in-app purchases you are doing, you have to go through the Apple's proprietary payment channels. However, Google has been more open about it, and that is where third parties like us kick in. What is happening in the recent, if you are following the trends of news which is happening in EU, Apple is getting sued, or there are cases going after Apple that it's a monopoly in the market which they do have. What they have is an Apple and Google tax. What it means is they keep a significant amount of that $100 which is spent which goes to Apple and Google. And merchant sets are the one who are going and fighting it. I still say we are a small player in the whole ecosystem. We are facilitating it, but we rely on an ecosystem. This is where the big guys like EA, Tencent, Netflix of the world are going to fight that battle because it's a significant amount of money which goes to Apple and Google. When it comes to Google, I think the way we look at it is Google is probably not going to change a lot in short term. Something major will change for sure. So our strategic moves are, if Google makes it more restrictive for payment channels like us to play in that ecosystem, or if they relax their restrictiveness, or if they totally reduce their Google tax. Right. Those are the things which really will impact us. And we are creating multiple scenarios in which how do we actually take competitive advantage around it, because we have scaled up our payment channels. We have all these connections with our payment channels. And that is a strong competitive advantage we have. We are also doubling down on the Coda Shop side of things, because that is a B2C arena which we are playing in. It's a typical e-commerce where we do think that we bring very strong value proposition to the merchant set to go co-market, get influencer network, which drives not just installs, but engagement with the customer set. So those are pieces which we are playing with to really figure out how we want to still play in the whole market. But frankly, what I think is in the short term to medium term, things are still going to be status quo. In long term, it could go either way. These big players will relax their terms, and this will be driven by the whole ecosystem.
I mean, I can also relate to that in some way because, you know, the food delivery companies like Grab and Gojek and all that stuff, they're also talking about, you know, a lot of the customers are moving away from those platforms because they're charging 30 to 35%, right? So that's one of the other things. So let's take another couple of questions from Keika Sugiyama. He's asking, are any plans on in-game integrations so that users can seamlessly top up game points or coins without leaving the game?
So this is where I think we are going to be limited by what Google allows us to do. So without leaving the game, Google does not allow a game developer to collect payments. And hence, most of the game developers will have to have a third party, or not a third party, their own website on which they will collect gaming credits. That is where we integrate with them. And I don't see that to change in the short term. Now you can be creative around it. And this is where the developers are getting more creative. Your switch, which happens with your in-app to a web interface, it has the same look and feel. Look and feel is still driven by the publishers of the game, and we provide the payment solution as an API connection. The day Google relaxes it, that is where we are ready with the SDK integration, and we'll be willing to take that opportunity forward.
Okay, I mean, which leads to the next question from Keika Sugiyama, which basically what he's also alluding to is, I think the question, if I'm not wrong, let me rephrase this. So if the third-party integrations are not allowing you to do the payments, so will they actually be allowed to pay some sort of a cash or some sort of a credit? And the question is, how many of them, or roughly what portion of customers in the entire gaming industry are paying and willing to pay customers?
So Sorry, I didn't get that question fully.
Okay, so basically what he's saying is, if they don't choose to pay money, and since the third-party integrations are there, and Google and Apple restricts it, so would you have some sort of a third-party, like a prepaid payment system in your ecosystem?
We are playing with that idea, and if you are looking at the ecosystem, we work. Our competitors like Razer Pay, they will have a whole gaming credit. Now, based on we are very systematic in the way we want to approach this. Instead of just creating a virtual currency or a virtual wallet, we actually spent the last quarter polling our communities. So we created communities in which we brought all the gamers together and asked them, what is important to you? They all say that there is a need of a virtual credit. But when we ask them that, will you park enough cash in there? I think that is where they look at the gaming credits, or rather the virtual coins as a wallet, more for reward, customer loyalty, and retention. And I think that is still a strong proposition for us. So we are looking at it. This is one of the skunk works which we are working towards. But definitely it's in our roadmap. It won't be something, we will not compete with the wallets, because we do not really want an open ecosystem. It's going to be a closed ecosystem, because we are not competing with the Boost of the world or GrabPays of the world. We are competing in the likes of Razer Pay, the Razer Gold coins, which can be used in a closed ecosystem, because the cost which we can give to the merchants is much lower. And I think the money comes in from low cost channels, and that money stays in the ecosystem for everyone to use.
Okay, I mean, that's interesting, because I think there's a behavioral change that's happening here overall. So would I have, like, if I remember one of the, what do you call, the Pokemon games, there'll be little shops. Will there be a Coda shop where I can go and buy coins bypassing Apple and Google? I mean, that's one way to have credits, right?
So if you think of it, Coda Shop is the e-commerce, right? So this is where the merchant sets, now Tencent is a big one, right? So they will have Midas Buy as their portal. But a lot of merchants will, if you go to Coda Shop, which we run in 30 countries, this is where people know that I want to buy diamonds for a particular game. They know Coda Shop, they trust our brand. We have created that brand loyalty. They go to our portal, they select what they want to buy, they pay for it, and it goes to their in-app credit. That is totally allowed, because that is where we are working as an e-commerce front. So the gaming credits, the diamond gems, are basically the SKUs which we carry. And this is the SKU which we work with our partners and the ecosystem, and we work towards that.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm sort of switching gear into a different kind of questions, because I think there is, the next couple of questions are from David, Mark Besserer. Okay, David, Mark. So they are more related to, one is, I think, behavior assessment on interviews. So he's asking whether it is still 100% video based, or do you do any kind of behavior assessment over video? That's one. From Mark. And then what have you learned from employing these, doing these interviews virtually? Any tips on these virtual interviews? So I think these two questions are related. So I'm sort of combining that from them.
So let me take, so if the question is around, do we take a behavioral assessment? The answer is no. At this stage, we are not doing it. However, in today's world, communication is becoming even more critical. How people communicate verbally, over video, both verbally and written, right? Most of the interviews which we have done since March, or pretty much 100% of the interviews which we have done since March, are all through video. So we had to, on the fly, now we are still growing, we are still a startup, and we are evolving our hiring process. But what we changed is, we put in different bands, be it a junior associate, senior manager, senior management level execs. We introduced a step of a take-home assessment. What it means is a take-home assessment can be anything. Could be a financial take-home assessment, a technical take-home assessment, a organization, if it is marketing, a whole case study. But we made everyone who went through their first two discussions to come back in a PowerPoint format, present it back to a forum of a few individuals. It did few things. So first, it really, in today's world, you have to be very structured in the way you're communicating and presenting your thought process to the stakeholders. That is what we could gauge in a formal presentation. It also gave the opportunity for different team members to interact. And this came a little bit as a cultural fit gauge. We ensured that our HR team or someone from the senior management team are sitting through and they're actually asking things which gauges the cultural fit. So we have extended the interview process, typically 3 interview process, out of which the third one, which is the culmination of the last or the final round, has to be a proper formal presentation on a gamut of different topics, with all the way from technical to organization topics. So that's how we have adopted ourselves. In the meanwhile, what we have also facilitated is, these are formal interviews, but what people were missing is that face-to-face interaction. So we facilitate casual interviews with team members. Now, if we are hiring for someone senior, we'll let them in, not a formal interview, but casual catch up with 2 or 3 team members to then craft their story and always come with what is your short-term, mid-term, long-term plan in a particular field of area or expertise, but as an organization per se.
Right. I mean, I'm not restricting. I know we are past 7 o'clock, but most of them are still in the discussion room. And I have a couple more interesting questions as well. So I just want to take that and I'll do a wrap up. So David wants to know whether you're a founder. If not, how did you join the company? And he wants to contact you. So David, if you want to contact Sid, I think you can look him up on LinkedIn, but you can also write a note to Lenora, CK, or me. We will definitely help you connect with him as well.
Yeah, so David, I'm not a founder. I'm a typical management person who came in, and the reason I'm there is because I love to take smaller organization and scale it up. Now that has come through the experience which was in the past. But to answer your second question around did I come to know about the opportunity? These opportunities are not publicized, and it needs to be created. And hence, I think at my level, it took quite a while to actually figure out, and this is where the community or booth network really kicks in. Frankly, after my MBA, most of the transitions I have made is through some form of a booth network. It so happened that one of my booth buddies, he knew the founders through MBA connections. The founder is a HBS guy. And through those MBA connections or social events which happen, and this is the power of social events, and kudos to people like Anand and all who keep doing it in Malaysia and all of these clubs. These social events interacting cross school has really been quite powerful in expanding that network. So I'll just leave it to that. Happy to connect and speak one-on-one. You have my contact, or LinkedIn is the best way of connecting.
Okay, one other question is from Jex Lee. We know, so he's basically asking, we know there are some other payments gateways like Paytm are both partners and competitors for you guys. But you must face the fact that along with the expansion of each of your business, there might be more competition than cooperation. How do you manage the subtle balance relationship with them? What do you think is the biggest advantage with them?
So Jex, I think I know where you're coming from. So this is where in the hierarchy of needs, or rather our values, obviously customer is the first, but we put a lot of emphasis in creating that merchant relationship. And that merchant set is something we always try to do the right thing by the merchants. And that stickiness really helps us to a certain extent as we start going in channels like Paytm in India and expanding. But that doesn't stop just at the merchant level. So I always think of it as payment channels are our banks. And we have to have close relation with our banks. We are competing with them, but at the same time, um, we are cooperating with them as well. So with Paytm, it's a very good case study around. We went in as a typical payment channel. We took the Tencent and Coda shops of the world to get money from payment channel like Paytm. But very soon, the richness of the merchant set which we have, that is what they are very, very interested in. And this is where the X-Shop proposition was a very good proposition. Eventually, they want to scale up their gaming credit business. And from that perspective, it doesn't make sense for them to go and interact with 300 different merchants, do 300 different connections, have different way of collecting money versus just interacting with one person like us. And that is a very strong competitive advantage which we have built over time and the scale which we have received to come in. But that's the engine. But around the engine, we have built a very strong marketing drive, which we promote through our influencer network. We are 180 people, but we have few hundreds on our YouTube influencers, gaming influencers, and that has worked very well for us.
Okay. Sorry, David, I know you have a lot of questions, and apologies if some of the questions got blurred together, but do connect with him. As he mentioned, the network is very powerful. Sid is always open to have a one-on-one chat with you. But that actually brings us to the end of this session. And I also, just before closing, I want to say to the rest of you, if you guys have any feedback or comment, that's highly appreciated. Please, you can write to CK, you can write to me, or you can write to Lenora and give us where we can improve or where we can actually make an impact. Also suggestions as to if there is an area that you are actually looking at finding out more, we can actually connect with the right panel members across the booth network. At Chicago booth, I want to thank Pedro, Sulakshmi, Ali, for helping me out in Malaysia. And of course, Lenora and CK in Hong Kong, who actually work in the background to also make sure that all of these things are properly done. So please, your feedback is highly important to us. And don't forget, we have another very interesting topic coming up, more on macroeconomics and also micro. So I've got a Harvard business graduate with the Chicago degree who's going to talk about more on the macro side. And we've got a very young Chicago booth alumni who started a quant fund called Chicago Global. So that's this Friday. So please join us for that. I'll be sending out more invitations for that event as well. But apart from that, thank you, Sid, for joining us tonight and sharing all this information. For those of you who've actually missed it, we will share this via webinar that is recorded, and Lenora or CK will send that information out to you. So thanks. Have a good evening, guys. And thanks, Sid. Thanks, CK. Thanks, Lenora.
Thank you all.
Peace.